Hello, my third grade friends. Today is a beautiful day for some three-digit addition, don't you think? We're going to do Unit 4, Lesson 10, which is on page 245. So go ahead and get that out, and then we'll get started. We're also going to practice reading from a table today as well, and doing a little bit of estimation while we're at it. So here we can see there's a table, and it lists the rides. Those are under that heading right there. And then on this side of the table, we have our number of tickets sold for each ride. So Twister had 298 tickets. Monster Mix had 229 tickets. Crazy Coaster had 193 tickets. Mega Wheel had 295 tickets. And Bumper Cars had 301 tickets. Okay. The first question, it says to write an equation and to solve the problem. So how many people went on the two most popular rides? So you can see on the table which rides are the most popular because they have the most number of tickets sold. So I'm looking here. I'm going to look first in the hundreds place and see what has the biggest number digit in the hundreds place. So I see I have one that has a 300. So one is Bumper Cars. And then the other one, I see I have 2, 3 in the 200s. And then I look at the tens place. I have 2 that have 9 in the tens place. So now I look at the ones place and I see 8 is greater than 5. So the two biggest rides or most popular rides were Twister and Bumper Cars. But it's not asking me to name the rides. It's asking me how many people went on the two most popular rides. And for this, we're assuming that each person only went on one time because otherwise it's impossible to tell. So I'm going to add 298 to 301, and then that'll tell us the number of people. How many people? So let's go ahead and put that in vertical form and line up our digits based on place value. 8 plus 1 is 9, 9 plus 0 is 9, and 200 plus 300 is 500. So 599 people. Okay, next question. The total tickets sold for which two rides was 494? So now I'm looking for two ride amounts that's going to end up with a 4 in the ones place, a 9 in the tens place, and a 4 in the hundreds place. And this is almost 500, so I'm going to look for combinations of things that are like, if I were to round, lead me to around 500. So I'm looking here, this is almost 300, and that's almost 200 if I were to round. So, but if I add 8 and 9, I'm going to have a 7 in the ones place. So I look at this one. Let's see, what are things that could add to having a 4 in the ones place, or maybe a 14, right, if we were to add. And I see I have a 9 and a 5. That could be 14. I see I have a 3 and a 1, and that could be 4. So if I do the 9 and the 5, that would be 14. So 229 plus 295, 14, and then 2. So 524. So even though that ones place was right, it's not quite right. So I'll try my other suggestion, which is the 193 and the 301. Okay, 494. And it was that. So it's not asking me though which two ride or which numbers, it's asking me which two rides. So I'm going to answer the names of the rides. So that's Crazy Coaster, and then plus Bumper Cars, equals 494. Okay, next one. Tickets for the Monster Mash and Crazy Coaster sold for $2. How much money did the school earn on the ticket sales for these two rides? So I need to think about that for a minute. Each ticket sold for $2. I'm going to have the Monster Mix and the Crazy Coaster. I'm going to find that total. And then if it were $1 each, it would be whatever that total is. But because it's $2 each, it's double. And we know that to find the double of anything, you just add it to itself. So I'm going to first add those two tickets up. So $229 plus Crazy Coaster $193. 9 plus 3 is 12, and then 1 plus 9 is 10, plus 2 more, another 12, so we're at 422. Now that's if that was for $1 each. So the way I figure out if it were $2 each is I'm going to add 422 for the first dollar per ticket, and then 422 for the second dollar. So 422 plus 422, and that gives me 844. So what I did there was I did 229 plus 193, and then we're actually multiplying that by 2, and that equaled $844. Okay, good job on that one. About, that's our hint that we're gonna do what? Rounding, right? About how many tickets were sold for Twister, Monster Mix, and Mega Wheel all together. So I'm going to round each of these, let's say to the nearest 10, and then add them up. So Monster Mix, 229, the nearest 10 if we look in the ones place, 5 or more, let it soar, 4 or less, let it rest. That's going to go to 230. Oh, that was for Monster Mix. I'm going to add Twister. That's 298, so that's about 300. And then Mega Wheel, 295, that's also about 300 in the nearest hundreds. So we have two 300s together, which is 600, plus another 200, so 800, plus 30, so 830. So about 830 tickets. Making sure we're labeling our answer and also including that it was rounded, right, by saying about. The total tickets sold for which 3 rides equals about 900. So again, I'm going to think, okay, this is about, so it's rounding. Which 3 of these are closest to 300, right? That would be a good way to go with that. Do I have 3 that are close to 300? So Twister's close, Mega Wheel's close, and Bumper Cars is close. So I'll write Twister, Mega Wheel, and Bumper Cars. And I chose closest to about 300 because I know that it was 3 rides that would add up to 900. I mean, and all of them were kind of near 300. There wasn't anything that was like 600, and you would need that to deal with this 100. All right, let's flip over and try the back. Here we have another table. We're looking here under the heading of types of collections. This whole table is titled student collections. So we have our types of collections and then our number of objects. So for rocks, we have 403. For stamps, we have 371. For shells, we have 198, buttons 562, and miniature cars 245. Write an equation and solve the problem. How many objects are in the two smallest collections? So this is pretty similar to what we did all together. So if you want to jump ahead, hit pause and go for it, and then hit play. So the two smallest numbers, I'm looking at the hundreds place. I see I have one in the 100s place and one in the 200, or a 2 in the hundreds place here. So it will be shells and miniature cars. Oh, but I see it's saying how many objects are in the two smallest, not which have the two fewest. So I take my number of shells, 198, and my number of miniature cars, 245, and I'm going to add those up. It's really important you read the question, right? Make sure you're answering the right thing. 8 plus 5 is 13. 1 plus 9 is 10, plus 4 more is 14. And then 100 plus 200 is 300, plus 1 more 100 is 400. So we'll write the equation, which was 198 plus 245, and that equals 443 objects. The total number of objects in two collections is 760. What are the collections? So I'm looking for something that's going to get me a 0 in the ones place. So I can see when you're only adding two collections. I can see I have a 3 and a 1. So to take the 3, I need a 7, right? I don't see any 7s. To take a 1, I need a 9. Make it 10. An 8, I see I have a 2. Could that be it? Let's see. So 198 plus 562. And just thinking real quick, this is about 200 and that's about 560, right? So if I were to add 200 and 500, that's 760. That, I think this is it, but let's double check. So 8 plus 2 is 10, and then 9 plus 1 is 10, plus 6 more is 16. Oh, hang on a second. Oh yeah, we're there. Okay, 100 plus another 100 is 200, plus 5 is, yes, 760. So what are the two collections? The one with 198 is shells, and the one with 562 is buttons. Shells plus buttons equals 760 objects. Are the combined collections of shells and buttons greater than or less than the combined collections of rocks and stamps? So what I need to do here is we need to add shells and buttons, which we just did, 760, right? And decide if that's greater than or less than the rocks and stamps. So we haven't added rocks and stamps yet, but we need to figure out if that's greater than or less than. So let's add rocks and stamps. 403 plus 371. 1 plus 3 is 4, 0 plus 7 is 7, and 400 plus 300 is 700. So if we're comparing 760 to 774, the hundreds places are the same. The tens places are different though. The 774 is greater. So then we would say shells and buttons are less than. Because that's what it's asking. Is it greater than or less than? It's less than. Is the estimated sum of stamps, shells, and miniature cars closer to 700 or 800? Well, it doesn't specify if we should do nearest 10 or nearest 100, so I'm just going to choose nearest 10. Okay, so stamps Nearest 10 for that would be 370. Shells, nearest 10 for that would be 200. And miniature cars, the nearest 10 for that is 250. So 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 0. 7 plus 5 is 12. And then 300 plus 200 is 500, plus 2 more hundred is 700, plus 1 more 100, 800. So it's closer to 800. Okay, suppose another student has a collection of sports cards. The number of sports cards is 154 greater than the number of rocks. How many cards are in the sports cards collection? So 154 greater than the number of rocks is another way of saying 154 plus R for rocks equals S for sports cards. So this is a little bit of introduction to algebra for you. So now all we have to do is take our number of rocks and plug it in here. 403, and then we have our equation. So 154 plus 403, and that'll tell us our number of sports cards. So I'm just going to put that in vertical form. And then add it up. 4 plus 3 is 7, 5 plus nothing is 5, and 1 plus 4 is 5. So 557 sports cards. And it does say to write an equation, so I'll put that in there. 154 plus 403. And you'll remember that an equation is just like a teeter-totter or like a seesaw balancing thing. So you can have the answer and then the equal sign and then the math expression like this, or it could be this way, which some people are more used to seeing it that way, but it's potato, potato. Either way is fine. That's it for today. Check and see if you have an assignment, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye-bye, everybody.